35 female bought my first house when I was 23 for me and my mom to live in after renting for many years. I paid the $80,000 deposit and my mom helped with the mortgage, paying $300 a week while we lived there together. I did this because I didn't want to live alone or pay rent to someone else, which allowed for me to improve my finances. When I moved out at 27 with my husband and later had 3 kids, my mom started paying $450 a week, and I covered the rest of the mortgage, which wasn't much. Now my mom has passed away, and my 2 sisters, 38 and 40, think they should get a part of the house. I don't agree. They say since I already own another house, I don't need it, and they want to split it 3 ways and rent it out. I've said no because my husband and I do not want to rent it out, as it hurts me to think of someone else in my mother's house, and I know they couldn't afford the mortgage and their own bills. Because of this, they've started arguing, calling me selfish because they think I already have everything and they don't. But I have not spent over $200,000 on that house just to give it to someone else for free. They also believe that since house prices have gone up significantly, that I'm to earn an extra couple $100,000, which I might, but I always paid for the property taxes and any maintenance needed. However, I do know my mother spent her money on this house over the years and are forever grateful she could help me out, so I offered each $5,000, which is all I can spare after having to pay for most of my mother's funeral and headstone. But they believe it's not enough and are continuing to argue with me about this. Have any of you experienced this? Well, P, I don't think you're the a-hole, and I've never experienced anything like this because I don't like clowns, honestly. So here's how I see it. Your mom didn't help you with the mortgage. Your mom paid rent, which she would have done any other place, and you used that rent money to pay off your mortgage. That's it. It's not like your sisters are entitled to any of it. The house is yours. I assume the deed is in your name. They're just being greedy. They didn't even help with the funeral, apparently. Screw them. Those $5,000 that you're offering to each of them, also no. They are entitled to nothing. And what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section. And now let's check out the community comments. Mikoto Suo's wife says, wait a minute, you bought this house and it's in your name presumably, and they want it? Why? Because your mom lived there? Is this house entirely in your name? Did your mom have any stake in the game? And Dopey responds, yes, that's why they want it. They think they're entitled to it because she paid half and lived in it, so they see it as partly hers. But the whole house is fully in my name. Honestly, I always thought of it as my mom's house and never really saw it any other way, but I won't ever say that to them. Downright Mystical says, not the a-hole. If you hadn't bought that house, your mother would have continued renting, so the money she spent on the mortgage would still not be there anyway, and there would be nothing for your siblings to ask for. At least, that's the way I look at it. The money your mother spent was the same as paying rent. It just so happens that you were the landlord. It's your house. Do with it what you wish. And Dopey responds, that's how I see it. Thank you. Needed clarification from unbiased people, as all I've heard these past weeks was I was in the wrong and began doubting myself. And Sofa Queen says, yes, I have. My husband and I bought his parents' house after his mom died. The dad lived there for a while, then remarried and moved out. Husband's 2 sisters moved in, rent-free, for about 3 years. Then we decided to sell the house. Now, we paid the dad full price, paid for all the maintenance and taxes for over 5 years. When we bought the house, it needed a ton of maintenance. Sisters moved out, we sold the house. That's when the 4 siblings came with their hands out expecting their share of the family home. So what did I do? First, I laughed in their faces. Second, I pulled out my handy-dandy spreadsheets of our costs and expenses. As it turned out, we had a slight loss before taxes, so I told them how much they owed us on the family home. Needless to say, that didn't go well. At least they stay away now. And Dopey responds, cannot believe they asked for money after living there rent-free. That's worse than ever thought could happen. Community agrees OP is not the a-hole and that she shouldn't give the sisters anything. So now let's move on with the first of 2 updates. My middle sister called again, saying I'm being greedy and that her daughter should get a share too. I love my niece as she's my only niece and very special to me, but I still said no. In my mind, she's always welcome to stay at my home or the other house anytime once everything is sorted, but she won't receive any percentage of the house because her mother didn't contribute anything. I told my sister to stop calling about it or she wouldn't be welcome at my house. I don't want my children hearing or seeing their mom and aunt arguing, nor do I want my niece to hear. She said that was fine because she wouldn't want to visit someone so greedy anyway. Just for newcomers, as I know some are confused, I'm solely on the deed. No arrangement was made. Mother paid well below market rent. 2 houses down just listed their house for $650 weekly. Wow, OP, I gotta give it to your sister. She just takes the cake. She calls you greedy because you won't share the house that you paid for, but she wants a piece? That woman needs to take a shower. She is just dripping in irony. And now, let's move on with the final update. About 2 days after I made the post, I ended up speaking with both of my sisters and we had a long conversation. It took a while, but things eventually calmed and we were able to talk properly again. At first, they insisted they should have a share of the house, but I went through everything I've paid over the year as the owner. I explained the repairs I handled while I wasn't living there, the renovations, installing security cameras, property taxes, mortgage rate increases, and the constant upkeep of the house. When they heard the full picture, they both admitted those ongoing costs weren't something they could realistically afford themselves. I also got the sense that my eldest sister never really cared about owning part of the house and always believed it was mine anyway. Once she said that out loud, my other sister eventually agreed too and the argument finally settled. That same day, we also sorted through our mom's belongings together. We each kept the things we personally gave to our mother and shared out the rest. In the end, I kept most of the furniture simply because neither of them wanted it. The house is now mostly set up the same as before, but I've kept my mom's personal belongings in her room. Now that some time has passed, I've decided to turn the house into a small holiday home that the whole family can use. When I told my sisters, they were happy and thankful. I did explain there would be a few rules though. No parties, remove all food before leaving, and if something gets broken, it needs to be replaced. I also said I wouldn't expect them to pay any household bills, but there would be a cleaning fee. The maid who used to come weekly for my mom now comes every 3rd week and after any weekend visit. She washes sheets, remakes beds, and cleans the entire house. I told them the cost is about $90 plus a tip. One sister wasn't happy and said she wasn't paying for my maid, but I explained when I stayed there recently, I paid it myself, and it's actually reasonable considering she comes on short notice and has to clean everything. So I explained to my sisters that it really wasn't about making money from them. It's simply about sanitation. If the house sits closed up for weeks without being properly cleaned, it will start to smell. I also used the example of I staying at my husband's parents' holiday home many times, and every time we always pay the cleaning fee and usually leave a small gift as well. It's just respectful and a way of saying thank you for using the place. My sister kept arguing though, saying I was just trying to make money from her, which honestly isn't the case. I even explained that the maid doesn't change the sheets every single visit unless I ask and I pay extra. I only plan to have them fully changed before our own family stays because we have small kids. These things have to be planned ahead around school and after-school activities and aren't ever spontaneous. I told them we were planning to visit as a family in about 2 weeks and that both sisters and my niece could come too. Since we would all be there together, they wouldn't have to pay the cleaning fee that time. The plan was for my husband and I to sleep with our youngest in mom's old room, the older 2 kids to share the room with their cousin, one sister to take the other bedroom, and the other sister to use the fold-out couch. Everyone agreed and we ended up staying last Saturday and Sunday. Honestly, we enjoyed ourselves. I was happy and took heap of photos. However, when my husband took the kids out for a bit, my younger sister started making judgmental comments about the house like, "You think you're better than us because you have this house." And you could easily rent this out and make real money instead of letting it sit here. She also said things like, must be nice owning 2 houses whilst making us pay your bills. At that point, I'd honestly had enough. I told her to stop and that if she continued making comments like that, she wouldn't be welcome to stay next time. She replied that I would just use the house against her every time we argued. I told her the only time I would is if she insults me in my own home, especially when I've tried to be kind and include everyone. I told her she had until dinner time to change her attitude. Otherwise, we would go out to dinner without her and I wouldn't be paying for hers. In the end, she decided to leave early and we haven't spoken since. Love her, but had enough and just found out she isn't speaking to my other sister as she took my side. Well, OP, you tried to be nice, you tried to do something for your whole family, but she just wouldn't get it and she kept just being a complete idiot. Yeah, you know what? When you start acting like that, then you don't deserve to get invited back. So now you don't have to worry about her and you can actually enjoy your holiday home. So here's wishing you the best, OP. Thanks so much for sharing and take care. And now let's move on to the next post that also has an update. This post is from the subreddit Am I the A-hole and it's by user StraightPrize1611. Am I the a-hole for giving someone a vape with no nicotine so they wouldn't want to try it again? I'm 19 now, but I've been vaping since I was about 16. It started as a dumb, everyone else is doing it thing, and it kinda stuck. My mom absolutely hated it when she found out back then. We had a lot of arguments about it through sixth form. Lots of confiscations and lectures. At one point, she even started doing urine tests. Even though I was furious with her at the time, I agree with her trying to stop me in hindsight. It was a dumb decision to start vaping and I wish I'd never took it up, and I appreciate she was trying to look out for me. A couple of weeks ago, my friend, 17, said he was curious about vaping and wanted to try it. He asked me because he obviously can't buy one himself yet. I figured that if I said no, he'd eventually find someone who would give him one, so I agreed. I went out and got one, but I filled it with vape juice that was 0% nicotine and in the most awful flavor I could find. I figured if he was curious, he could technically try vaping, but I didn't want to be the reason he started a nicotine habit. I didn't tell him there was no nicotine. A couple days later, I asked him what he thought. He said he didn't get why anyone vapes. He tried it a few times just to see if it would grow on him, but it didn't, and he said he's not interested in trying it again. It worked. Fast forward to yesterday, and I decided to mention this to my mom while we were chatting. I thought she would find it funny how much I'd changed and maybe even a little bit proud of me. Instead, she said what I did was wrong. Her reasoning was basically that I manipulated him. She said my friend asked me for something honestly and I deliberately misled him by giving him something I knew wouldn't represent the real experience. What really threw me was when I pushed back and asked if she'd feel the same way if the situation involved weed or even something like coke. I assumed she'd say that's different, but she didn't. I told her that if she were my friend's mom, then she'd probably be pretty happy with the outcome. He tried it, hated it, and now isn't interested in vaping at all. From her perspective, that should be a win. But she responded her point wasn't that I'm not his parent, and even parents shouldn't trick kids about what they're putting in their bodies. I even asked if it would have been less bad if I gave him what he was expecting, and she said yes. This reaction surprised me a lot coming from her because she spent years trying to stop me vaping and was very intense about it. So hearing her suddenly take this "people should make their own choices" stance caught me off guard, especially when what I did was less harsh than anything she did. I can see where she's coming from, but I still think it's a valid way to stop someone from taking up vaping. Am I the a-hole? Well, OP, it is a very interesting gray area, but I wouldn't call you the a-hole because you didn't stop him from vaping. You just didn't add the addictive part of it. Your friend still vaped, he didn't like it, and he's not gonna do it again. Now, I kinda think I understand your mom's point of view. She's trying to go from a absolute transparency position, which granted, you did eschew the results of this, let's call it experiment. Albeit, I would say in a healthy way for your friend. So like I said, it is an interesting gray area. But if we look at the bigger picture, the outcome, the huge result is that your friend is not attached to an unhealthy habit. And that's a positive thing.
And that's why I don't think you're the a-hole. And what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments section. And now let's check out the community comments. I'm Kid A says, not the a-hole. While I am firmly against manipulation and lying in almost any circumstances, I also vaped for a decade. I didn't quit until my late 20s after vaping the nig equivalent of a pack a day for a decade. Lying to someone's own benefit is a fine line and a slippery slope, not something that I want to make a blanket statements about, but I think you were truly in the right in this situation. It's the same idea as dads who let their kids try a sip of their beer in order to convince them that alcohol is gross and not worth pursuing. It may not be a foolproof plan, but if you can convince a young person that a dangerous substance is gross and boring rather than enticing and exciting, may God watch over you and your deceit, lol. You may not succeed in warding them away from it for life, but even if you can just delay their exposure to it, that helps. Maybe it'll be delayed until a time when they're more ready to resist peer pressure, have better coping strategies, are less impulsive, etc. At the very least, you're delaying the onset of the self-inflicted damage. From now on, don't discuss this with anyone, not just because they might disagree, but because if it gets back to the person you were trying to help or deceive, it will not only be messy, it will likely increase their resolve to explore what you were trying to safeguard. Stay in School says, not the a-hole. You literally saved a 17-year-old from a lifelong addiction he'd regret later. So honestly, your mom is tripping with that honesty logic. And Lovely Lotus Eater says, no a-holes here, but your friend trusted you enough to ask you about this habit you chose to keep. The better route would be to discuss with him how you were tangled up in addiction and that you don't want to see him addicted in the same way. If you had done that, you would be truly setting him up for success. As is, he may just decide that vaping doesn't appeal to him, but he may still be curious about other formats of nicotine. The route you choose was misdirection and deceit rather than facing the vulnerable truth that you're addicted to something that you know is bad for you to the point you are attempting to protect others from trying it, but that you're so mired in that addiction that you are not successfully stopping. I think that if you face your addiction honestly, it would be enough to stop friends from picking up that path. Well, the majority of the community agrees OP is not the a-hole, but I really did like what that last commenter had to say. So now let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. So literally the day after I told my mom about what I did, she went and messaged my friend's parents. I didn't know she was going to do that since, the way I saw it, the situation was over. She also left out the fact that the vape was nicotine-free and really the whole point of what I was trying to do. From what I've been told, she said she thought they should know their son had been vaping and that he got the vape from me. That I had come clean, apologized for my child's behavior, and even suggested it might be a good idea for them to keep him away from me. His parents didn't punish him or anything, since he messaged me on my phone right after, but they still confronted him and expressed their disappointment. When my friend told me, I felt horrible because this whole situation only existed because of me, and now he was in trouble based on an incomplete version of the story. I couldn't help thinking, maybe this whole lying to try and control the outcome thing runs in the family. If so, that would explain a lot. At that point, I knew I had to tell him the full story to clear both my name and his. I told him that it was 0% nicotine, that I had picked a disgusting flavor on purpose, and that I should have just told him no instead of trying to be clever about it. I apologized and said I understood if he was annoyed. I was bracing for him to be annoyed, but he took it really well. He said that both the bad impression and the kickoff it's now caused at home has just put him off the whole thing entirely. When I saw him in person, I gave him the vape juice bottle I used that clearly says it has no nicotine and told him to explain to them what really happened. And today, he said they apologized and said they felt there was something off about the situation from the way my mom spoke about it. Apparently, they were also pretty weirded out by my mom suggesting they should consider drug testing him. That did not land well with them at all. My friend said they even joked she'd been spending too much time on Mumsnet. My mom's in a bit of a sour mood today. Not sure exactly why, but I can guess. I was an idiot for telling my mom anything. No, OP, I'm sorry. You weren't an idiot. You should be able to trust your mom, but I guess your mom's the idiot, not you. But I guess unfortunately you learned a really bad lesson. You just can't trust your mom. But the silver lining is that your friend's not in trouble and your friend's not gonna vape and you and your friend are okay. So here's wishing you the best, OP. Thanks for sharing and take care. And now let's finish this video with a mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Petty Revenge and it's by user Too Many Julies. My neighbor takes up all the parking spaces on the street, so I made friends with the birds. Simple petty revenge. I have a neighbor who takes up all the free parking on our street and in front of my home with his trucks, 8 or 10 of them, and also has done lots of things to personally annoy me, like drive his dirt bikes through my front yard and letting his dog crap there, right in front of me. So I befriended the local family of crows by feeding their favorite things. Now, I will occasionally see 5 or 6 crows waiting patiently in the tree in front of my house, crapping and looking especially creepy, but surprisingly not making a whole lot of noise to give away our secret to the other nicer neighbors. They have also not crapped on my car in my driveway once, not once. In all the past months I've been treating them. The trees mostly cover the street area anyway. OP's edit. If you know crows, they are a legion, and if my neighbor decides to retaliate, there will surely be a full-on war. Nice, OP. You are playing this just right. Thanks so much for sharing. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out, so here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later, and also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.